Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here with a very interesting video for you today on a very unusual, strange object that has been found coming in from ultra deep space close into our solar system. And this isn't just any unusual object from the hypothesized Oort cloud or like an interstellar object like 3I Atlas. This is an extremely large object. So it has a size, it's approximately 150 kilometers in diameter. That is the estimate that we have right now. As it gets closer in, that may change. This object is designated as C 2014 UN 271 Bernardinelli-Bernstein. And it's officially known as a comet. But honestly, it's quite bizarre. It's huge. It does display activity like a comet. It's been having outbursts, and there's been carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and then also ammonia has been detected with this object. But remember, things in reality are often non-linear, which means that you have this system that's kind of looking stable and predictable, then all of a sudden things change. Classic example would be a black swan event, where just out of nowhere there's some sudden shock or economic disaster or something like that. So this thing is very far out. It's currently near Uranus, around the orbit of Uranus. A little bit closer in. It's approaching Saturn. That is supposedly the closest it's going to get based off of its orbital trajectory. It'll reach its perihelion at about 10.95 astronomical units. But it's been displaying this sort of outburst activity, and it's extremely large. Remember that. It's been displaying this outburst activity extremely early, much earlier than most comets. And it's also, there's evidence that suggests that it's never actually gone this close to the sun before, which will be that perihelion of 10.95. If it's never gone that close to the sun, then its makeup will be different than most comets that fly in. And actually, it only reaching the orbit of Saturn is quite anomalous in and of itself, because most comets get closer in than that. So it likely has a more primordial composition to it. And therefore, we don't know how it's going to behave, because as it does get closer to the sun, it could perhaps do really significant outgassing of volatiles, and maybe that non-gravitational acceleration is actually significant. But you have to keep in mind it's a huge object. It's the second largest comet that we know of. The largest comet that we know of is actually a Centaur. That is Chiron, which orbits in between I think it's Jupiter and Saturn. We'll look at it in just a little bit. But Chiron's like 220 kilometers in diameter and has a coma, and it has some cometary behavior, but it never gets close to the sun like normal comets do. This, though, is a huge comet. If it is a comet, honestly, it may be better to call this thing an object. But the official designation right now is that this object is a comet. This is, again, C 2014 UN 271. So we're going to talk about this in the video. It is much larger than 3I Atlas. It's not approaching like imminently its perihelion. That will be, again, January 2031. But it is directly underneath the solar system right now, which is very interesting because it originally came in from above. Now it's directly underneath the sun and the inner solar system, and then it'll swing back up, and it cuts through the ecliptic plane in 2033. So that'll be August 8th of 2033. So we're going to talk about that in today's live stream. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geophysicist, geologist, space weatherman, cosmic bro. Just someone who's interested in what's happening here on Earth, in this solar system, in the cosmos, and taking what I learn every day with my research, presenting that to you almost daily. So if you like the sound of that, then please subscribe. So let us start off first with a little bit of a comparison, because right now 3I Atlas is what is taking everyone's interest. here we have a new image of 3i Atlas, and I think this is honestly one of the best images that we have of this strange interstellar object yet, because we see very clearly with this new image this sunward facing jet slash tail. Like, it's, the other ones were more faint and it was smaller. This one is like very clear and obvious that there's something strange happening here. Then you have the tail going off to the side, and you have the coma, and then you even have this brighter part of the coma too. So this is one of the latest images of 3i Atlas. We can see it right here. This was first, I saw this on Twitter. So here is the link to this, and I have this reposted on my Twitter X account. That's Stefan Burns Geo, but I'll also drop a link to this in the video description once the live stream is done. But you can actually see some other images here. Here's a zoomed out image that's quite nice. And here's the zoomed in one, which we're looking at. But key point here is the stacking needed to get this image. It's 57 60-second exposures with a gain of 100. And the camera used was this one right there. That's the telescope. And it was, had to be stacked and processed and more. So it's not easy to get these sort of images with the tail and with these jets. It required 57 60-second exposures. So there's a lot of astronomers looking at 3i Atlas at this moment in time, and they're all using different methods. Some are just doing a straight live feed for you on a video, right? And there's no stacking, and it's not really like long exposure, so you're not going to really see anything. Others are taking multiple short exposures and stacking them, and that will show you the coma, but it's not going to pull out any jets or tail because it's only like a 4-second, 5-second exposure, maybe even less. And then there's other astronomers who are going out and they're spending, this required nearly an hour of capture time because it's 57 1-minute exposures. So others are going out early morning and spending a good amount of time out there getting this imagery and then processing it in order to pull out these fainter details of the tail and these jets. But this is very, very peculiar here, this forward-facing jet on 3i Atlas, and that demonstrates how these things from deep space can really, behave in anomalous ways that we're not used to. There's a lot of comets that have flown through our solar system that we have observed across time, both with the space age and before. Some of them get really close to the sun, they get really bright. Others, like C 2014, UN 271, Bernardinelli-Bernstein, or BB, that is staying pretty far away. 3i Atlas is odd because it's interstellar and getting close to the sun, cutting within the orbit of Mars. It's perihelion 1.36 astronomical units. It has started to decrease in brightness now. So an interesting thing to point out with 3i Atlas before we get into our coverage of this new, relatively new, it was discovered before 3i Atlas, but it's not like it's been close to the sun in hundreds of thousands of years. Object is that there's an interesting synchronicity that exists here with 3i Atlas, and that is the Mercury-Uranus oppositions that have been unfolding. So you can have planets reach these exact alignments with the Earth in the middle, or conjunctions and sextiles, whatever, right? All the different combinations of planetary geometry. Well, Mercury and Uranus have been making 3 oppositions with Earth in the middle because of Mercury's retrograde. Due to the way that the Earth is orbiting around the sun and Mercury's orbiting around the sun, Mercury's basically moved retrograde through the sky. And so there was an initial opposition. Then we had our last Mercury-Uranus opposition just a few days ago on the 19th of November. We have one coming up in about a month. Guess when that first opposition was between Mercury and Uranus? Oh, it was exactly the perihelion of 3i Atlas, which was a big day, obviously. It's the closest to the sun. That was October 29th. The second Uranus-Mercury opposition was the day of the NASA live stream on 3i Atlas. That was November 19th. Obviously, that was a big day for this because people were waiting for these images and we were all basically universally disappointed because they were awful. And guess when the next big day for this Mercury-Uranus opposition is? It's December 19th, which is when we have the closest approach of 3i Atlas to the Earth. So that is also a very big day for us here. And as a result, the fact that that planetary alignment is matching up perfectly with those 3 days, and that planetary alignment is connected to radical changes and breakthroughs and kind of like liberations of understanding, and also Mercury, therefore, with communication. You can't have that opposition without the sun being involved, which then brings in the idea of spirituality and consciousness and our awareness and light and illumination, revealing things in the dark, because Mercury is so close to the sun. So it's a very illuminating, liberating, and just kind of awareness-provoking transit that 3i Atlas is perfectly coinciding with its key dates of its perihelion, the big NASA live stream, and the closest approach it will have to the Earth. So I wanted to mention that as well. But that is the 3i Atlas update for you, and it is much smaller than C2014 UN 271 Bernardinelli-Bernstein. We'll just maybe call it BB comet from now on, okay? Because this is a monster. Here we see the imagery that Hubble took of this, okay? This is back in 2022. This is the observation that Hubble took. Here's Earth's diameter. We can see that even at this distance, it has quite a large coma. Here is the model for the coma, which they created in order to kind of subtract the coma out, and this is what we're left with, the nucleus. So that's the direction to the sun. You can see that with this observation, the sun is basically above it. We'll look at the orbital diagram in just a little bit, the 3D visualization. But it is a very, very, very large object. Now, there's a lot of large objects in the solar system. You have tons of large asteroids. You have, again, like the Centaur Chiron. You have lots of dwarf planets. You have lots of moons. But what's unusual about this is that it's coming in from ultra deep space. So I've talked a lot about Sedna on the channel, which is a trans-Newtonian dwarf object, dwarf planet, trans-Newtonian object that's about 1,000, 1,200 kilometers in diameter, and it's coming to its perihelion in 2076, and that closest approach will be about, was it like 70-something, 75 astronomical units away from the sun, and is a 12,000-year orbit approximately. It goes out to 1,000 astronomical units for its furthest away from the sun. So that is an object that's going way outside the heliosphere and is going out into interstellar space for sure. That's 1,000 astronomical units. The aphelion here for BB comet is estimated to be, I think it's estimated to be 40,000 astronomical units for the last one, and the next one is estimated to be 60,000 astronomical units. The interesting thing about this object is that it goes so far out and it's so large that it actually is only loosely bound to the sun, and therefore it can be perturbed with its orbit by what's known as the gravitational tide of the galaxy, so the galaxy's gravitational tide, and also by any passing brown dwarfs or stars or things nearby. So we really can't track its orbit out back in time or going forward, because it's really just a stochastic system. It's too random and chaotic for us to really know what this thing has done in the past or what it's doing going forward. So that's why right now we are tracking it, and we're seeing that it's going to cut within the orbit of Uranus and get really close to Saturn's orbit, but it is fundamentally an unknown. And so here we have it set for today, the 21st of November. And we see it there directly underneath the solar system, which is what I find so interesting at this moment in time, because it's making, therefore, a very interesting planetary geometry. Its orbit is inclined 95 degrees to the ecliptic plane, so it's nearly perpendicular to the ecliptic plane, as you can see here. And it originally started above, swept below, and now it's starting to come up. And at this moment in time, sure, its perihelion is in 2031, and it's cutting through the ecliptic plane is 2033, August 8th. But right now is when it's directly below the inner solar system with all the planets and the sun. So that is very, very unusual, and makes this interesting planetary geometry where now it's no longer just certain angles confined to the ecliptic plane, but it also is now making these square angles down below, and it's not tiny, right? It's not 10 kilometers across. It's a huge, huge comet. Here we can see a size comparison provided by NASA. We see Halley's Comet right here, 7 miles in size. And here we have Hale-Bopp Comet, which was a very large comet that flew in recently. Recently, I mean like the past decade, basically. 46 miles across. 60 miles across is the prior biggest comet. And here we have C 2014 UN 271, 85 miles across. That is likely to get further refined, but that is the current size estimate, and it's probably fairly accurate because just because of how large it is, and our observations of it actually go back to 2010. So it was basically picked up by some those two guys, Bernardinelli and Bernstein, looking through prior sky catalogs and just looking and hoping to find something unusual, which they did. And they were able to pick it up going back to 2014. And then once we knew the location, and then we were able to track it back to 2010 with some prior all-sky maps as well. So that is very interesting. I don't know the velocity on this thing. It's hard, in fact, to get velocity measurements for comets. I could perhaps get it calculated, but I'll report on that in a future video. I don't know how fast it's coming in, but it's not as fast as 3i Atlas. And it's been undergoing these outbursts. So that's the thing. Normally, comets will get in close, and then they'll start to undergo this sublimation of their materials, and there may be outbursts when it's close to perihelion. This thing started having outburst activity at 26 astronomical units, which is nearly at the orbit of Neptune, which is very far out. And the dynamics of the solar system change at the orbits of Uranus and Neptune because the solar irradiance really drops off, like dramatically, because it's inverse square law. So every time you double the distance, it goes down by 4. So there's very little light reaching Neptune. Of course, there's a lot less light at 40,000 astronomical units for it's furthest away from the sun, you know, when it's basically just drifting in the galactic tide. But it still isn't that much energy being received at the orbit of Neptune. Yet it started to spontaneously have these outbursts, which was quite dramatic. So we see its light curve right now. It's not that bright. Its apparent magnitude is getting close to 14 at this moment. They estimate it'll get up to around 13. This, again, is around its perihelion. It's going to be this long transit. But again, because of these outbursts and unusual activity and the fact that it may have never gone this close to the sun before, this is very likely to change. I doubt that it's going to follow this exactly. This is just us seeing something and then interpreting forward. But again, if this is a nonlinear system, then this could be way, way, way brighter than we think. And maybe that causes it to actually nudge in its orbit because these outbursts are quite significant. Right now, it's losing about 1,000 kilograms per second, outgassing dust and gas 1,000 kilograms per second, which is really incredible. Here we have an infographic for this. So it has carbon monoxide and CO2 and also ammonia that's actively sublimating at this moment in time. It's sublimating those because they have a very low sublimation temperature. That's when you go from an ice directly to a gas. And it's had these violent outbursts, over 100 million kilograms of dust, ice, and gas ejected in less than a day. So huge amount. It has a very low albedo. It's darker than asphalt, darker than coal. So it's about 4%. It's very, very low. its reflectivity is about 4%. And that means it's going to absorb basically all the energy that it gets from the sun, from the solar wind, everything else. It's going to be absorbing that because dark surfaces absorb. It's not reflecting much, which also is like once it gets closer, how is that going to change things? And its aphelion was about 40,000 astronomical units or greater, so extremely, extremely distant. It's getting close to our sun at 10.9 astronomical units. That's the current estimate. So within the orbit of Jupiter. We can go back to our orbit visualization here to check that out. And let's go forward in time now. We'll go, if we click play, you see that's not moving that quickly in comparison to the planets and such. We kind of have to go forward by year here. And let's go to its perihelion, which is specifically on, well, it's January of 2031. So I may have wrote down the specific day in January, but I know it's January of 2031. Here is its perihelion right there. That's its closest approach to the sun. And then if we go to August 8th of 2033, that is when it crosses the ecliptic plane like that. So that's going to be a solar minimum. Right now it's solar maximum, and it has that perpendicular planetary geometry to everything else that's happening right now. It's basically directly below everything. I think it's probably already actively participating in the energetic dynamics of our solar system as a result of that. It has, significant gravity, being 150 kilometers across, basically. Then it'll cross the ecliptic plane 2033. It's also doing this off-gassing, right? So it's basically littering the bottom of our solar system with a whole bunch of material that's very primordial in nature, and that's going to spread out across the solar system. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects the solar wind and more, the heliosphere as a whole. And then it will continue on back above the ecliptic plane, and it's going to be quite some time before it lines up above the solar system, as you can see. But eventually it will do that around maybe 2066, 67, something like that, right? It looks like it's now above the inner solar system at that point in time, even maybe 2069 right there. That looks pretty precise. Sorry, that looks pretty precise right there, 2069. So the geometry that we are seeing right now with this object, comet, whatever you want to call it, I'm becoming less and less attached to labels, especially when it concerns these things where we just have a couple photos and that's it. What we're seeing right now in 2025, November, December, into next year, planetary geometry-wise, is quite significant. Now, the other thing to mention as it relates to this is that because it's so large, we don't know how its kind of coma is going to respond as it gets close in, because it's large enough that if it has gas that's sublimating very quickly, that is breaking up some of it and causing the dust to fly off, it has enough of a gravity well that some of that dust will then go back down. So it's going to have fundamentally different characteristics than a lot of comets or objects, or for example 3I Atlas, because it can then actually capture its gas and dust back down. It has to really be sublimating quickly, and the dust grains have to be ejected far enough and light enough to actually extend out before going back down. So that could really change the dynamics of the whole energizing process that it goes through in ways that we don't really understand, because we've never seen a comet this large before. And it's getting within right to the orbit of Saturn. So I can actually add Chiron here to our orbit visualization. Here is Chiron, which is very large, 220 kilometers in diameter. We see it going there from inside the orbit of Saturn to just inside the orbit of Uranus. So it also, it gets a little bit closer to the sun than this guy is going to, Bernardinelli-Bernstein, but it is kind of locked in here. It's never experiencing deep interstellar space. It's in the heliosphere. It's always in the heliosphere. whereas Bernardinelli-Bernstein UN-271, it's been way out there. And it has this totally different composition likely as a result because it maybe hasn't been enriched in certain elements and compounds and depleted in others. So we don't know how that's going to affect. But we already know that it has been doing these outbursts dramatically since 26 astronomical units, and it's only getting closer day by day. So that is UN 271. The cool opportunity that is presented by this is that we perhaps could do a flyby of this. It's far enough away in time that if we launch some probes using Earth and Venus, at least according to this flyby mission that's proposed by someone, I'll link this in the video description. It's a YouTube video. They calculated this out and plotted it themselves. We could send something to UN 271 and it reached them around 2033, 2034, something like that. You'll watch how this all of a sudden gets flung out from this gravitational slingshot around Earth, an Oberth maneuver, which a lot of people were expecting 3i Atlas to do, and it did not do. But this could catch up and provide us a really interesting chance to look into the properties of deep interstellar space, the primordial solar system, and also just what the heck this thing is, because again, it's just so large. The disappointment with 3i Atlas is that we did not divert the Juno probe orbiting around Jupiter back when we had the opportunity to do so to hopefully get as close to 3i Atlas as possible. And during that NASA live stream, they're like, oh, if we could do something, we would. It's like, guys, you're decommissioning Juno in like 2 months by incinerating it in the atmosphere of Jupiter, whereas you could have like just at least tried to get it close to 3i Atlas. It's going to get wasted anyways. May as well do what we can to get as close as possible, but they were too slow on it. And well, you know, we're just missing opportunities left and right. So hopefully we don't miss this one, though there is no official mission planned as far as I know. I'm not even sure they're talking about it. This was just an amateur enthusiast on this who calculated out the orbits and the maneuvering that would be needed to catch up to 271 again early to mid 2030s. So we have this large object. There's no techno signatures to it as far as I know. And it hasn't behaved in a way that would suggest that. So I want to make that clear. I'm not suggesting that this is alien or anything of that nature, but that doesn't mean it's not an unusual object. It's very large. That gravity potential that it has is going to affect how its coma evolves across time. It's already been outbursting at extremely far distances from the sun. It has a more primordial composition with the sublimation of ammonia, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide. We don't know its water, gas, or ice percentage content yet, as far as I know. So that is the T on C 2014 UN 271 Bernardinelli-Bernstein. And I've been your host, Stefan Burns. If you like the show, then please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and remember that I have a website where we have a variety of holistic wellness products and merch available. This is earthevolution.com/store. We are fully stocked up on everything except spirituality, which we will get back in stock soon. But we have a bunch of the tea blends, tons of crystals now. In fact, we have fruit tea fully in stock, which is fantastic for this time of year because people are getting sick. And this is specifically designed to help you fight colds and infections due to its elderberry content, its rose hips. It also has strawberry for flavor, and strawberry is also very good for you. It has a little bit of lemon balm to help keep you calm, cool, collected. It's an anti-xylitic. And then there's also hibiscus for color and flavor. This stuff tastes amazing. It's almost like fruit punch, but there's no artificial or natural flavors or sugars or anything. It's just 5 all organic ingredients super good for you. So you can drink it, it satisfies your sweet tooth, but you also are helping your immune system out at the same time and just adding just a little bit of calmness and parasympathetic activity in general too. So the fruit tea is awesome. We've mixed up a bunch of it. So there's no chance of that selling out unless you guys go absolutely nutso. And then there's also the merch. So the latest one here is the Cosmos Within t-shirt, but there is new merch coming. I'm working on that right now. So be mindful of that. It's going to be pretty cool. But this has the sacred geometry built in on the front, cosmic artwork on the back. I think what 3i Atlas has shown is that there is a huge interest in what's happening in our interstellar neighborhood, and people are expanding outwards and connecting to these energies through their conscious mind and, you know, examining the science, but also spiritually just expanding their consciousness outwards. So that is also something that I help facilitate here on the channel, just by examining these things and going through them and exploring the unique kind of characteristics and possibilities at play. It helps attune you into resonance with these objects and these spaces in general, because our Earth is one very tiny speck in the universe. So we are, though, creatures of the universe, which is very vast. The universe is our entire home. It's not just Earth. So if you want to attune to these other places and download that energy and information and consciousness that may reside there, then that's one way to do it, is to research into this or just kind of meditate and go there. So that's the point of these videos as well. And while 3i Atlas has been bringing in some very unique interstellar light codes, you could say. So I'll continue to keep you up to date on this. We have a third big wave, I think, of activity around 3i Atlas, around its closest approach to Earth that lines up exactly, as I mentioned, with that Mercury-Uranus opposition, the third and final one. So it's going to be kind of probably kind of like a concluding thing, like this is the big event. So we'll find out what that is, but that is when 3i Atlas will be closest to the Earth. And I will keep you up to date every step of the way. So thank you all so much for watching. I'm wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. I'll see you all in the next video.